So hello and welcome back to Strathpeffer Junction. Today we're going to take a look at upgrading the speaker in Hornby's TTS twin track sound class 37. This one's in the network rail livery, but there's a variety of different liveries out there and the principles are exactly the same. Okay, so before we jump in and change the speaker, let's just have a quick look at the model itself. This is Hornby's Class 37, and it is based on the old Lima Class 37 originally anyway. It's an entry-level Class 37 model. It's not got many frills. It has separate applied horns. That's about the only thing. No sprung buffers. The upgrade from the Lima does now have a NEM pocket style coupler there, which you can take out, so if you want to change it for KDs or something like that, you can do. It doesn't come with directional lighting of any sort, and certainly no cab lights, so if you did want to install lights or have working lights, you would need to do that yourself. Now I've done a light install on a Lima Class 47, which is pretty similar to this, so in terms of the process, I'll pop a link up there, and if you'd like to find out how to do that, by all means have a look at that video. But in terms of the model, yeah, it's all moulded. There's nothing much to it. Taking the body apart is just 1, 2, 3 pips on this side, 1, 2, 3 on that. They are coloured to the same bodywork, and there is a tendency when you take the body on and off just to chip a little bit of paint off them, so do be careful when you do that. But anyway, we'll take the body apart now. So as I say, it's these 3 pips. If you've got long fingernails and the body isn't on too tightly, then you can often just run your finger along like this and pop them open. I think it'll probably work for me. Yeah, here we go. If that isn't working for you, then what you can do is get a very thin bit of plastic and slide that down the side, and that will help you pop it open. Some people do use credit cards to do that. I find they're a wee bit on the thick side, so not so useful for doing that. But anyway, there we are. We're just about there. Wee bit fiddly. There we are, and it pops open like that. Okay, so that's just inside. I'm just going to move the body out of the way for safekeeping for now. Let's have a look at the body itself. So we've got the TTS chip, and that's plugged into the 8-pin socket. And we've got one of the little round speakers here, which is held in place by a little plastic cradle and a couple of screws. Now I've already taken one of the screws out, so we'll just take the second screw out there, and we'll set this to one side. There we go. We won't need that again, so you don't need to worry about it too much. So these particular round speakers, which are fairly standard on TTS chips and some other ones like LokSound as well, they're not particularly great. They produce a sound, but there's not much bass response, and they can be quite tinny. So what I'm going to do shortly is just to desolder these 2 tabs here, get rid of the speaker. We don't need it again. You could nip it off as well if you wanted, but it will make it easier to reuse these wires if you just desolder it. If you are installing a TTS chip for the first time into a non-TTS or non-factory TTS loco, you're not going to have this speaker in here. You might well not have the depression that the speaker was in either. And of course you won't have the TTS chip. But once you have stripped the speaker out from the TTS one, then we're in pretty much the same situation for the TTS upgrade as we would be if you were just doing a TTS install from scratch. Okay, so I've removed the TTS decoder, that's out of the way, we'll come back to that in due course. What we're going to do now is look at fitting the speaker. Now what I'm going to fit in this particular install video is a Megabass speaker or a high bass speaker. There's a variety of different names depending who you buy it from, but to all intents and purposes it is a 1-inch square speaker with 8 ohms, and that's really important for these TTS decoders. It's got to be an 8 ohm speaker or a combination of speakers which cumulatively provide an 8 ohm load for the decoder. But anyway, as I mentioned just previously there's loads of space to play with. What I'm going to do in this particular install video, we'll just bring the body back in, is show you the easiest way to install it. Now there are different ways to install these speakers. The easiest way is for it to be installed in the roof of the loco, just at the front here, with a little bit of black tack or a sticky pad, and it sits in place absolutely fine there. Now that's the easiest way, but there are other ways to do it. You can install the speaker in the centre here, above where the original speaker was, and that's quite a nice robust way to do it. It's fixed the chassis. The only issue with that is that the plastic inset here, which not only provides the window glazing but provides a little bit of sideways stability to the locomotive, you need to cut that out. It's easy enough to do. You can stick the windows back in and trim out the central bits of glazing, but it's an extra step. You might not be happy doing that. It is possible, if you're not careful, sometimes to break the windows or to break the plastic in ways that you don't want to, so it's not without its potential problem, but no, you can do that. That's probably my preferred install method, if I'm being honest. But anyway, this one is going to be the simple one. So what we're going to do is get a little bit of black tack, apply it to the back here, and we'll stick it into the roof of the loco there. But before we do that, we'll get this soldered onto the decoder so that everything's ready to stick in. Okay, so soldering all this up is a really simple soldering job. All you need is an iron, some solder, a little bit of flux if you want it, and a steady hand. Now what we want to make sure then is that we have enough length left on here and enough length on the decoder speaker wires so that this can fit in the body where we want it, and the decoder can fit where we want it as well. So we want to have the decoder plugged in here. It will go around that way. I think what I'll probably want to do is to fix the decoder itself down here because the speaker will be above here. So let's plug that in. There we go. And then we want to have this about there. Speaker wires to here, speaker here. So yeah, so we want just some very short legs on here. I reckon probably about 1 inch max is really all we need. So I'll get my little snips and we'll snip it back to about there. This isn't needed anymore, so we can set this to one side. Okay, so we've trimmed the wires back, so I'm just going to use my wire strippers just to strip the end very slightly, probably about the biggest one on these ones. There we go, that's 1. And that's 2. Now, what I like to do just now, after twisting the ends slightly, I'm left-handed and I have a tendency to twist the opposite way to the wires that are actually twisted, so I often end up untwisting them by mistake. Anyway, right, I've got these stripped back, I've got them cut to size. I'm just going to pop a little bit of heat shrink on now, which I will shrink down later just to make sure that the join is nicely insulated. There we go, great. Brilliant. And what I'll do here is disconnect this decoder out. While it's not absolutely vital if you're just hooking up one speaker, I do like to try and keep colours linked to colours, so we'll solder red to red and black to black. But as I've mentioned in other videos, and I mention again, if you're just sticking one speaker onto the decoder, it doesn't matter which way around the wires are. The only time that the polarity of speaker wires is important is if you've got more than one speaker linked up, and in that case you do need all the polarity to be respectful of each other. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'll just take this over to my workbench and I'll solder these together, and I'll shrink down the heat shrink over the top, and then we'll come back to installing this all into the chassis and the body. Okay, so that's everything soldered together. I popped the heat shrink over the top, black to black, red to red, and so on. So what we're going to do now is we'll bring in the body of the loco, and we are going to install the Megabass speaker in this top section here. So I'll get some black tack as well. What you want to do, because these speakers do produce quite a lot of rumbly bass, you do want to make sure that if you're installing them in the roof like this, that they are well stuck in. That's probably why my preferred install method is to install them elsewhere, because you know they've got a solid base. But it is perfectly fine to stick them there. Just make sure you're using lots of black tack. So we'll pop the black tack on one side here, and we'll pop the black tack on the other side here. Now with this particular speaker, the central bit is never going to touch the top of the body there. So you either need to put on an absolute mountain of black tack, or you just put a little bit down either side. Either way will work. So we'll do that again here. Pop a splodge there. And we'll pop a splodge there. Just pull it out a little bit there. I'll pull it out a little bit here. I would only recommend that you use black tack or sticky foam pads for this, because anything like normal blue tack is just not going to have the sticking power that's required. So, okay, we've got the black tack on now, and then we're just going to fit it into this space here and hope for the best. Great, okay. So that's it in there. It's not going anywhere. It's well and truly stuck in. So now what we can do is get the decoder itself plugged back into the chassis. Okay, so that's the decoder plugged back in. I've just tucked the wires down into the space where the old speaker was. Used a little bit of black tack and some Captain tape to insulate to hold the decoder on. And all that we need to do now is to pop the body back on again. So I was getting ahead of myself there and I was about to celebrate because we got to the end and I forgot to say something. Now, sometimes with these speakers, depending how far you can get them to bed into the roof, the cone can sit really close to the top of the 8-pin plug. And what I've done on previous ones, and I've just remembered just now, so I better tell you, is I've unscrewed the actual 8-pin socket because it sits a bit high on some plastic pegs. So I've unscrewed the socket, I popped a little bit of black tack just next to it, and I've seated the socket in the black tack, and that just drops it down by about ½ centimetre, so then it's completely clear of the cone. So I'm just going to do that quickly now. I'll just undo these screws here. There's one, and there's two, and all you need to do is just lift this up, apply a little bit of black tack to the bottom there, and just stick it down onto the base of the chassis there. And that's all you need to do just to absolutely double check and ensure that there's enough gap between the top of these pins and the cone of the speaker. Okay, so just to show you what I mean there we've got the socket bedded down on the base of the chassis with a little bit of black tack, and these 2B screws that we took out, if you want to hang on to them, you can screw them back in there, or you can pop them back into your spares box for future use. Okay, and there we have it. The lid's back on again, the speaker's installed. Really pretty quick, simple job. You can probably do it quicker than I did to take this video. But anyway, I'll just give it a quick whiz on the test track so you can hear what it sounds like, and then we'll call it a day for today. Okay, so that was just a quick run on the test track, and that's the install project complete. Now, when I was giving it a wee test run there, the sounds are much better than the original stock speaker. It's still a TTS chip, and they are limited in what you're going to get out of them. It isn't the same as, say, a LokSound or a Zimmo chip with a Lego Man Biffo or another sound project on it. But hey, it's a fraction of the price, and for the money, I think these are really pretty decent chips, particularly for diesels. The one thing that I would mention is that I'm not always convinced the balance of sounds is quite right in TTS chips from the factory, but you can change those yourself. And the way that you change those is outlined quite clearly in the manual that comes with the chips. In the CV settings, up the higher end, 160s, that kind of area, there's a whole range of different CVs that affect the different sounds, whether it's the prime mover, the guards whistles, the various valves, compressors, all that kind of jazz. So you can go in there and you can tweak them so that they work best for you. I did find that I needed to drop the main engine sounds down one notch because I felt that they were just a little bit too loud in comparison to everything else. I also backed off the whistles slightly, not the whistles, the horn slightly. So anyway, you can play around with that, and the beauty of these particular chips is that if you completely mess up the CV sound settings, you can reset those without resetting the entire decoder. So if you go to CV8, normally if you reset CV8 with 8, it resets the entire decoder. But on this TTS decoder, if you read CV8 and then you write 5 to it, then it will just reset the sounds. So if you've set up an address, if you've changed some of the motor characteristics and so on, you'll not lose any of that. You'll just reset the sounds, which I think is a pretty good feature. Okay, so there you have it, done and dusted for another video. I hope you found this one useful. Certainly it's a pretty simple project. Just about anybody with a soldering iron can carry this one out. But if you do have any queries or questions, please pop them in the comments section below, and I or somebody else will get back to you give you some of our thoughts or suggestions. But anyway, I'll leave it there for now. I've got a whole load of other videos coming up soon. I've got a total backlog in editing, so I'm just trying to get through them as quickly as I can. But anyway, they'll be coming shortly, and for now, cheerio.